The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat about well. We're at the edge. It's clear for takeoff. Start. 2, 1. Boost to ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to be back in Uncle Jimbo's cabin. I hope you've enjoyed the ride on this Tuesday, May 15th, Wednesday, May 16th. Hey, I'm a day behind. Today's the 16th, tomorrow's the 17th, but we are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North, as we are here 7 days a week. Let's welcome in our terrestrial radio stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We're also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station funded by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Hey, if you like our music, that's Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. We got to give him a resounding clap of affection here because Bumblefoot just nailed a brand new recording contract with EMP record labels. So it's pretty good for him. Hey, if you're on social media, do me a favor. Give us a follow on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show as well. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player.fm, and Stitcher. Our website, of course, is SpacedOutRadio.com. And if you head over to Patreon.com, for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio as well. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms. I want to hear from you. You can go to our website, click on Listen Live. You can go on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or maybe you're one of the lucky ones who's on Facebook in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I'll get to your questions in there as well as they come along. Now, if you head to our website, for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. I took some pictures now tonight of the t-shirts. We got stickers. We have Spaced Out Radio posters all coming to the website. I hope you check them out. Pick some up for yourself, some cool little swag. We will be adding to that, including Carl the Alien candles coming up very soon. Now, we got a great news section called The Encounter Online, courtesy of our news editors, Everett Themer and Eric Markham. Check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Now, as all of you know, I went out east this past weekend, and I am back from an interesting and incredible Provincetown Paracon in Provincetown, Massachusetts this past weekend. I got home exactly 21 hours ago after going from Provincetown to Boston. That was a 2-hour drive. Boston to Toronto, a 96-minute flight. Then Toronto to Vancouver, just under 5 hours. Then driving 6 hours north to get back home in my own bed, which felt oh so good. The cool part about the weekend was actually meeting face-to-face a couple of team members of mine, personally, for the first time. Meeting the preacher, Eric Markham, and Everett Themer and his wife Tracy was an amazing experience. You see, us guys, we talk every night after every show, but to have that dialogue face-to-face was just something that just really felt good. But I do have to admit, I didn't realize how addicted I am to this show and spending it with all of you space travelers out there, or as Lulu Bell calls it, spacers. I actually miss not being on the air, even though the break was a fantastic way to reboot the charger. I also went on Facebook Live for the first time and recorded my speech on paranormal journalism. I hope you checked that out. Well, enough about me. Let's get on to tonight's show, shall we? Dale Harder is a gentleman who is an ET contactee, a former NASA employee, a ufologist, and he believes strongly that he's also a hybrid human Pleiadian. That's the big list of information we got on him. Dale owns 2 businesses, HHR Lasers Inc. and HHR Exotic Speakers. He has been in the UFO field for more than 45 years and has regular visits from alien craft. Dale is an officer for Cleveland Ufology Project, the oldest UFO club and MUFON group in the world. And tonight we are going to find out what's going on up in the skies. Now, here's the head scratcher for me. If you listen to this show often, you know that for some reason, and I never plan it this way, but how many of our guests have come on and have been from Ohio? What the hell is in the water of Ohio that everything is so strange? Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, Frogman, aliens, sea monsters, everything. I got to find this out from Dale. Dale Harder, welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight, my friend. How are you?
Good evening, Dave. How are you?
Okay.
Thanks very much for having me on the show.
No, thank you for coming on, my friend. I do have to know, though, what is in the water with Ohio that all of this strange stuff always seems to be around that Ohio area? I just don't get it.
Well, you know, if you go back and look at MUFON records and various sources, say over the last 50 to 70 years, you're going to find hot spots in the country. And believe it or not, Ohio is in the top of those as far as the hot spots.
No, I get that, but I cannot believe how many reports of strange creatures, not just aliens, not just Bigfoot, but strange creatures that seem right out of a sci-fi comic book are wandering around your state. How do you do it? Who's creating these? Is it all out of Wright-Patterson, or is this just figment of imagination?
Well, you know, Wright-Patterson has quite a history, and I'm sure there's something to do with that there. That's the things that are here that that most of the listeners do not know about, including NASA and all the various areas, things that are secret, things that are kept hidden. And then, of course, you've got the wonderful Great Lakes, and the Great Lakes themselves are awesome sources of life. So not only do they attract UFOs and various things like that, and nuclear power plants, which are attractive, there's other things that possibly exist in the area.
Now, you've been studying this field for over 45 years. That's a long time to be doing something. Do you feel you're any close to any answer as to solving this whole UFO ET riddle?
Well, owing to the fact that I believe and know that I am an ET, I guess I already have my answer. So seeing the craft and seeing, and conversing with my brothers and sisters, etc., for me, it's a given. But as far as the general UFO field is concerned, everybody's still scratching their heads as to whether or not these things really exist, this, that, and the other thing. And if I may quote a very special friend of mine, I won't give a name, but to put it in terms that she said recently to me, which made absolute sense. She said, if you look at things from the standpoint of law and a court of law, we process things in courts of law every day based on without reasonable doubt. Well, if you look back over all the time, at least the last 100 years, when UFO reports have been very prominent up till now, if you take the amount of evidence, pictures, and reports, and trace evidence, and basically people who have seen things that are absolutely reputable, pilots and specialists and scientists and every walk of life, there is enough evidence with the pictures and the reports and the commonalities, the abductions and the visitations, that we are way, way beyond what would be used in a court of law to say, yes, there's no doubt whatsoever, and guilty is proven. So I and she and others have simply had a very hard time going, why can't anybody accept this? So, I kind of thought that was a very profound statement.
So let's go back to your childhood. Were you a lifelong ET contactee before you realized the whole hybrid situation, which we're going to get into in just a little bit here? What do you remember about your first experience?
Well, I knew that I was different from day one, I guess. As far back, my memories are a little bit clouded now. I can remember back to about 4 or 5 years of age. But I was basically very, very different than other children. And I didn't know it because I had nothing to gauge it against. But my first recollection of a craft or something different like that was during the time I was probably 8, 9 years of age. And back in those days, most children had little jobs and chores we did around the house, and we would get what they'd call an allowance. So one of the things that I did besides taking out the trash were taking care of feeding the dog or some different things like that, and cutting the grass. People can remember back when they had those lawnmowers that were rotary-type lawnmowers, hand-powered rotary lawnmowers. My father had 2 of those things, and one was a big one somebody'd modified and put a Briggs & Stratton engine on it. And another one was a smaller one that I could handle and push, and it made maybe a 12 or 14-inch cut. So I was out in the yard pushing this thing, and if I recall, it was from a westerly to an easterly direction. It was a beautiful sunny day, afternoon, and there were no clouds in the sky, just absolutely cloudless, perfect blue sky. And as I'm moving along, I had this funny feeling, and I didn't know what it was exactly, but I looked around, I saw nothing, and I finally looked up, and above me there were 3 saucers, discs, placed in an equilateral triangle, one at each point. And they were beautiful, whatever, but they didn't affect me, it didn't bother me, it didn't scare me. As I moved forward, they'd move, and it just never occurred to me to be afraid or anything else. And that went on for some time, and I don't really remember what happened after that, but eventually they just left. But, that was one encounter that I can recall. And so it was very strange to me that, hey, I should have been jumping up and down or scared or running or anything, but I did not. That's perfectly normal, And I went about cutting the grass. So it did begin very early. And some of my earliest capabilities, I guess you could say when I was born that I actually came into this world with a head full of knowledge, full of information. I knew basically then what I know now, but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know how to use it. And so my life has been a series of learning experiences to relearn and to understand what to do with that knowledge, to develop the wisdom to use it. So it's been quite a ride.
At any point, did you question yourself or your own sanity to what you were seeing and what you were feeling? Because you did mention growing up, you felt different. You felt not the same as everyone else.
Well, I guess I didn't question my sanity so much, but I had a lot of abilities to do different things. I was somewhat different physically. I was very, very sensitive to temperature and light. I had some different anomalies to my body. My body temperature is always typically lower, usually 97 degrees or a little less. My blood pressure was always extremely low, and I never paid any attention to it as a kid, but so I was attracted to crystals. I was absolutely fascinated by everything, and I had the ability to interact with nature, with animals. I could hear thought. I had psychic experiences, different things like that. And consequently, when I finally got old enough to go to school, all the other children were absolutely scared to death of me. They would all cower and run away, and I would usually sit by myself. And so this kind of forced me to develop a relationship with myself that I was very comfortable being alone. It didn't bother me in the least. And I would stay inside, and I wanted to read, I wanted to learn, different things like that. So I really didn't have too many friends growing up. And it wasn't until a little later that I finally understood just how different I was. Now, my parents knew that I was different, and of course my birthing process here was different also. But I remembered coming into this world, basically, when I was on the craft with my people, I had volunteered to come on a mission to Earth as part of a vanguard force to help Earth, to develop an awareness and a consciousness level of where we're headed right now, to accept UFOs and that we're not alone in the universe and the whole thing. So anyway, at the time I was getting ready to leave for this mission, I had changed my mind. And I said, no, I don't want to go. And at the last moment, they're pushing me literally out the door of the craft. And they're saying, no, you got to go. You've studied, you've been prepared for this, you got to go. So I actually ended up, here. And then I went through a birthing process because you can't, as a Pleiadian, a full Pleiadian, could not live here for any length of time because their vibrational frequencies are so high in comparison to the level that humanity occupies. So they can visit for a while, but they can't stay that long, not without extensive modification. So I literally went through a birthing process in a human body and was infused that way. And as the story goes, I was born and left on a doorstep. I was about 3 months of age, and I was left at the Catholic Charities, and then I was finally adopted very shortly after that by the parents that raised me, and everything worked, accordingly. So I was very fortunate that I had such wonderful parents. But they all knew I was different, and pretty much my father, who was an engineer for Terex, General Motors, didn't really know why I was different, but he did what he could to nurture that and to support that.
You were literally dropped off on a doorstep, just like what we would see?
Yeah, I was left in a basket.
So the alien, and I'm not saying this to make fun, the alien stork comes down and drops you on a doorstep. Is that basically what happened?
Well, no. I literally was born of a mother, and in a physical form, and my soul, my Pleiadian soul energy, was infused into this human body, so that I could live here for an extended period of time. But I always knew from the moment, basically, that I became aware here, that my time here was limited. I always knew that I would only be here for a short time, maybe up to the age of 40. And I even used to run around the house at a very early age and tell my parents, I won't be here that long. I have a mission. And they go, yeah, sure, that kind of thing. But no, I was literally born as a baby, and when that time came, about 3 months after my birth, I was put into this basket and left on the doorstep. I had a note that explained my name was David Larry. I had no last name, and that I was made from a union of two people that nobody knew anything about. They weren't together or anything of that nature. Now, back in the early 50s, it certainly wasn't the kind of thing that was common maybe for a woman to have a child out of wedlock or anything like that. So there was very little to be known, and I had no last name. And the only other thing that the note said was that I was allergic to regular milk and needed to be given goat's milk as a substitute. So that is basically the way it occurred. When my mother and father that raised me were 20 and 21 years of age, my mother, unfortunately, almost immediately after they were married, had to have a full hysterectomy. And so she wanted children very badly, and so did my father. And just about the time that she went through that, they went to the Catholic Charities, and they found me, and it was kind of love at first sight, I guess. So they took me home, and lo and behold, there I am. So it was quite an interesting beginning.
When you look back at your childhood, did you ever have, like a lot of kids today, if they go through traumatic experiences, whether it's parents using drugs or alcohol or any sort of abuse, they have some sort of post-traumatic stress. Did you have that, even though it probably wouldn't have been diagnosed as that back in the day?
No, nothing like that at all. I had a very loving mother and father, and 4 years later, my sister that I grew up with was actually adopted also, in the same fashion. And so we had a very stable, very good home life, and I had no such traumas or anything at all. And my mother and father were married for 53 years. And my mother finally, she contracted multiple sclerosis a little bit later on, and basically had that most of her life. So I grew up taking care of her, and my dad retired early, literally, to care for her 24/7. So, but they were very close and stayed together right to the very end. My father is still alive, is living in Tennessee, where he was born, and which is basically where I grew up and consider my home. He's now 88 years of age, and after my mother passed, he ran into his childhood sweetheart and married her, and she died from cancer. So he's been married twice and lost both wives. So he's quite an interesting fellow.
Now, was he a big believer in this whole alien UFO thing, or was this something that he had to be...
Not in the least. He would have told you you're out of your mind.
So how do you go about... And I'm curious about this because... we hear all these people out there. I mean, doesn't matter if they're contactees or they've seen something strange, or maybe they're coming out about who they are as a person to family, friends, and everything. I remember when I sat my dad down and I said, "Dad, there's some things I need to tell you that I don't really understand." And this was just 2.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And my dad I've always known him as a real five senses kind of guy. That if it doesn't happen within the five senses, it just doesn't happen. And I was so nervous on having that conversation. I mean, how do you tell your parent, "Oh, by the way, Dad, I'm 41 years old, and I see UFOs, and I've been face-to-face with aliens, and I've seen Bigfoot, and I'm having all this weird stuff happen, and I don't know why." And I was absolutely dumbfounded that he took a deep breath and said, "Son, I believe you." And that was, I just sat there stunned. Did you have that type of moment with your dad, or was this something that you had to build up in order to prove things to him that this was actually who you were?
Well, it's kind of odd because they always knew that I was different. They saw that right from the get-go. And when you're 6 years old and you're basically repairing all the appliances of the neighbors and neighborhood, and at the age of 6 to 7, you build your first laser, which I've been doing all my life now, they kind of thought something was up, So it wasn't unusual. But for me to, at that point, tell them who I was or what I knew, it wasn't something that they quite grasped. It wasn't the kind of thing that you would sit down and talk about. I mean, "Hey, Dad, I happen to be an alien." "Yeah, that's nice, son. That's great. Can finish your dinner." But it wasn't unusual for me to do things that most children would not think about doing. I've never been one to know the feeling of not being able to do something. A lot of people, they limit themselves, and I never have been one to do that. if I wanted to get up in the morning and go out and, say, dig a lake or a pond, I would do so, and I did. One morning I woke up and I said, Dad, I love fishing. I'm going to go out in the lower 40 out here, and I'm going to dig myself a lake. I want one on the property. And he said, yeah, okay, son, okay. Well, after weeks of digging, I did. I dug a pond. I dug a big one. And there were mornings when I would wake up and say, Dad, I'm going to go build a boat. Okay, all right, yeah, and I'm going to go build an airplane. And I would literally go out and give it a whale of and a lot of times I did what I wanted to do, and they were absolutely amazed at the things that I accomplished. So my entire life has been that way. I don't know the meaning of I can't do that. If I want to do something, I just do it. So I always tell others, you can do the same thing. You don't need to be limited in any way. You're not a limited being. And the limitations that you're experiencing, you're placing on yourself. And, so some people grasp that, and others look at me and say, no, you're just out of your mind, or maybe they're sick or this, that, or the other thing. And they say, do you think I would have chosen this? And I said, well, obviously you did choose it as an experience in this level because you wouldn't be going through it otherwise. So, and that includes myself. I know I was different. And, of course, my entire life, I've had people come up to me, Dave, and literally not know who they were. Just walk up to me and say, you're not from here. I said, what? You're not from here. You're from out there or this or that, or tell me where I was from. And so I would just say, oh, well, yeah, gee, thanks, and kind of fluff it off. Full well knowing inside that they were right, but I guess I never got to where I could fully accept it. And then, I'm now 62 years old. Finally, by the time I reached 56, I finally said, okay, enough is enough. I have to accept who I am, and this is who I am. So I accepted that and got on with doing the mission that I was sent to do. But it's been a real ride, I can tell you that.
Were you ever able to find who your real parents were? No, not really. I actually tried to get my birth records, and they were sealed when I was born. And I went through Columbus, Ohio, our government offices and places there. I went through the Bureau of Records, and I tried through my friend Dennis Kucinich was our council person here, and of course I tried a whole different bunch of things, and no one could get my records. So I was just simply told they were sealed and that I would never be able to see them. So all I have is what looks like a black and white sheepskin, I call it, for a birth certificate that says I was born on January 21st. And I've even come to find a little bit about that is not quite right. I was actually born on the 20th, but they didn't fill in the certificate until the 21st. I was born at the Cleveland Metro General Hospital, the old Cleveland Metro General. But that's pretty much all I know. And really all I wanted to know was the time I was born, so that I could possibly have an astrological chart done or something like that. But I couldn't even find that much. So, no, well, for whatever reason, they won't let me know who I am or where I came from. So do you believe, then, that one of your two biological parents were E.T. hybrids or an extraterrestrial? No, I think they were basically just normal human beings doing what normal human beings do, and, made either a mistake or whatever the reasoning was, and more than likely were unmarried, unable, and simply for whatever reasons I was given up. But, that opportunity was presented, and so I entered that body, and that's basically how I got here. The consciousness that I now have. So, I've known my entire life that, I was different. But it took a while before I truly understood what that meant. I have always, from as early as I can remember, looked up at the stars, watched the sky, been fascinated with all those kind of things, and
always gravitated to one area, which was the Pleiades. And the Pleiades and the Pleiadian have been something that I've always been comfortable with. So I knew that that's where I was from. I could look up and know that that was home. I couldn't explain it to anyone else, but I did know.
So you go through your teenage years, and you say you're thinking differently, you're having some sort of psychic, kinetic ability. You then go off to college, and you have an interest in lasers and everything. How did you get involved with NASA?
Well, when I was young, and like I said, I built my first laser when I was 6. I built another one and won a science fair project with it when I was 9. I was fascinated with light and lasers, and I actually I think the reason that I did that was that when Theodore Maiman discovered the ruby laser in May 16th of 1960, I was just absolutely blown away with that. And it was on the cover of a National Geographic magazine. And I was just enamored with the whole thing. I said, look, I have got to do this. So I immediately put together and built one. So my father, being an engineer, got a hold of a ruby boule for me from Union Carbide, and I literally hand ground this thing into a cylinder, which looked like a cigarette. It was about 2 inches long, 1/4 inch in diameter. And I hand-fashioned a flash tube, which is very much like the flash tube or a flash bulb in a camera. And I made a high-voltage power supply and everything for that. And when the light was flashed near the ruby, it would produce pulses of laser light. And it had enough power that it could actually put holes or pits in a Gillette razor blade. And back then they used to give them the power output in Gillettes. How many razor blades could you laser punch through? So, going from there, I was always fascinated with lasers. They were my first and greatest love, and it was just the light. It was something about it. So I was that moth to that flame. But also, during the time of growing up and my childhood, my father was very good friends with a gentleman in the neighborhood who worked for NASA. And every time he would come over, he would bring for me the NASA News, the newspaper that they printed. He would bring pictures of the early astronauts in the space programs of Mercury and Gemini, and a lot of times he got those things signed for me from the astronauts or the people himself. And so he would bring me a lot of publications. He brought me mission patches and just everything. And I was fascinated with this stuff. I mean, every time there was a launch of anything on TV or was on radio, I was glued to it. So he basically nurtured that. And I always felt I wanted to work for NASA. I wanted to go to work for them. And I wanted to be an astronaut in the worst way. Well, back then, there were a lot of restrictions on how big you could be and whether or not you wore glasses and things. And I wore glasses from the time I was about 6, 5 and a half, 6. And so I couldn't go into the astronaut program because you couldn't go into a space capsule wearing glasses. And I was a little too big. They had restrictions on size and weight. And so I had to leave that part of it, but I thought, well, geez, I would still love to work there, work on the rockets, the whole thing. And when the opportunity finally came, I applied for a job with them in 1980, January of 1980, and was hired and went to work for them. Now, there's been a little bit of misinformation that's got circulated on the web and otherwise, and things happen. So I'd like to clear a little of that up. I performed engineering duties and things for them. I did work on the space shuttle. I worked on the propulsion systems for Atlas and the Centaur rockets. I worked on a lot of different things. They sent me to Kennedy. They sent me to Houston. But I was never actually hired as a degreed or PhD'd engineer for NASA. I was there in a time early enough when having a college degree or being a doctorate was a privilege. And if you had it, it was great. But we live in an era today where it's almost impossible to get a good job unless you have or even push a broom, basically, unless you have a PhD. So I went to school and went to Ohio State and Cleveland State and Case. And as I got to a certain point, there were no fields to go into that I wanted to be in, no electro-optics or different things like that. So I had to go at it from the back door, going into electrical engineering and studying that. So the duties that I performed for NASA were a result of knowledge and technology and capabilities that I already had, and the rest of it was either on-the-job training or they sent me to school to do it. But there was never a doctorate involved or anything of that nature, so I'm not a doctorate of rocket technology or a rocket scientist. But having worked on them, so other people say, well, what's the difference? If you work on rockets all the time and everything, aren't you a rocket scientist? I said, that I can't answer. No, no. So I'd like to clear that up for people that are listening.
What was it like when you first walk into NASA? I mean, that had to be a little intimidating. That had to be a little bit in awe of being in this great building that, you know, had taken people to the moon and sent people into space. What was that like for you?
Oh, you know, it wasn't intimidating. It was awesome, yes. And greatest job in the world. I loved it with every breath. I wish I was still there. But certainly not intimidating. I felt right at home. And you know, all the years that I spent with them were just a gift. And so after 12 years of being with NASA, and things had wound down in the space program pretty much, they decided that they didn't need services of basic people or certain people any longer. And a bunch of us were let go at the same time. And from that point, I went to work for Honeywell Aerospace and went into the avionics and high-power radar departments and worked for them for 7 years. So, but the time that I spent with NASA was wonderful. I enjoyed every minute of it, and it was a dream come true. So, but also when I was a child, I got to go to Kennedy. Of course, at that time it was called the old name before they named it Kennedy Space Center, National Aeronautics and Space something or other. But I went there for the Apollo 13 launch, and my father had clearance to get in because when he worked for Terex General Motors, he actually, and he too, was another one who was self-made and became an engineer for them, even though he didn't have the degree to do it. He did it through the work, the knowledge, the experience, the on-the-job training, etc. But he led a team of engineers that developed and built the crawler tractor. That's that great big platform with the tractor type bulldozer wheels on it. And that would bring the Saturn V or the space shuttle from the vehicle assembly building to the launch pad. And so I got to go down with them for Apollo 13's launch, and I had pictures of myself standing there with my hand touching the rocket with the exhaust venting over the top of my head the morning of the launch. And that was really, really cool. So I knew at that point I always wanted to go. Even when I worked at NASA, I begged them, I said, just take me to the nose cone and let me go. You know, it should be a heck of a ride.
Did you ever get to hang out with the astronauts and just their attitude and be around that? What was that like?
Yeah, I've met a few, yeah. And, you know, just depends on where you were and things like that. We have a NASA Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, which at that time, it was at that time NASA Lewis. It is now called NASA Glenn, and it became Glenn when I was there. But they are involved, believe it or not, in every launch that is done at Kennedy. and in one way or another, they're connected to the launch systems and monitor a lot of the shuttle systems and things and all the launches that go on there. So there's quite a bit of interaction, far more than people here know. And I was actually in launch control when we lost the space shuttle in 1986. And so that was pretty tough because I did know some of those people and watched that thing explode and come down to the ground, and it was a very hurtful thing to go through.
Take us through that moment.
I'm in front of a giant screen, much like a movie, watching the launch, watching and listening in launch control, and was listening to the various people, and pretty much like you would see on TV, the control central, where they were launching the rocket and all the telemetry and everything that was going on, but just another extension of that. And so I was watching just like everybody else. So just listening, and after the thing launched, and then all of a sudden the rocket exploded, and right away we knew that there had been a catastrophic failure. We knew pretty much that morning that we were really taking a very, very big risk with the temperatures as low as they were, and the possibility of failures of O-rings and things like that. But there was actually, to my knowledge, an order that came from the White House that said they needed to launch. So everybody was watching because we had Krista McCullough on board, and so it was quite an important launch. And but it just literally ripped us apart to watch that thing explode, and the parts come down, and we knew that the astronauts were actually still alive until they hit the water. So it was pretty tough to go through. It certainly ripped me apart. I mean, I cried like a baby. I couldn't help myself. A lot of people did. And even now, when I watch a film or a playback of that, it's extremely difficult.
Did you know them personally?
I had met a couple, but no, I really didn't know them like, good friends or anything like that, no. But, when you're in that group, when you're in NASA in general, you feel like a big family to begin with. At least I did, and I know there are many others that did. And so, even though you might not have known everyone personally, you still had that sense of loss. And for weeks, it was the only thing on people's lips. It was the only thing we could think of, the only thing we could talk about. It just ripped our hearts out. So, losing both shuttles, in fact, Columbia and Atlantis, it was very hard to do.
Let me ask you this, because, around here we talk a lot about conspiracies, and maybe I'm overstepping my boundaries, and if I am, please, tell me I am. But there's a real conspiracy out there that a lot of people believe that the Challenger was a false flag. And that, they've come up with photos of what the people would look like today in different positions. And have you seen that conspiracy around that the shuttle crew actually survived? And if so, what is your thoughts on that?
I would say no. I don't buy that one. There is far more to what happened than I'm prepared to discuss at this point in time. But as far as I know, they're all gone. I don't believe for a moment that they survived that, and they were definitely on board, and they definitely went down. The hard part is the reasons behind it, and what was going on, and what basically forced those issues. And that information is not something you're ever going to see or hear governmentally, but there is information. The truth is out there, basically. And that's about all I'm prepared to say about that. So, but there is more to the story.
That's something we will have to investigate. Thanks for the tip. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll put our little journalism hat on, and we'll go for it in regards to that. Now, going through the whole Apollo project, and then all of a sudden we see the trips to the moon just end. A lot of people said, we've been there, we've done that, we don't really need to go back, we've got all that we need. And then the shuttle program starts where we never cross the Van Allen belt again. And I'm getting a lot of questions from our audience about the Van Allen belt. Is there a reason why we've never gone back, in your opinion? Or do you believe the hype where a lot of people in this field of ufology will say, well, that's because we have bases there, or aliens have bases there, or we were asked not to come back? What's the reasoning?
Well, there's an extreme amount of stuff that goes on in regard to that. So we can touch on a few of those things. Yes, we were told not to come back. First of all, you have to look at the program and what was going on. The reason that we went to the moon to begin with, and there is two reasons that will jump out at you. The first one is that we were in a Cold War, supposedly with Russia, and, a space race. And so we were trying to beat them out to get to the moon first. However, there is the possibility that there had already been contact made, and there was materials on the moon as far as remnants, shall we say, from ancient civilizations and so forth, which was available. And it was a question of, as well as still being there, and it was a question of whether or not that material was available or up for grabs. You have to ask yourself, why would anyone spend billions upon billions of dollars to go up and collect a couple 100 pounds of rock? There had to be a little bit more to it. So there's been a lot of conjecture based on that, and the reasoning for it. I was told, as far as Apollo 13 and the little explosion that they had also been told prior to going there that they were never ever allowed to take any nuclear material to the moon. And apparently that had been breached. And so there was talk of the fact that they had a little accident to prevent them from completing their mission. Essentially, after we got to 17, they were simply told, don't come back. So there was a lot of conjecture based on that. Now, I cannot and am not saying on behalf of NASA that is the truth. I can only say that I suspect that those stories have some truth in them. Because I do not speak for NASA in that regard.
A lot of the big issue that we seem to have, and it always seems to come up, is about the Van Allen belt. We only got about 2.5 minutes here before we got to go to our first break, Dale. Is, in your opinion, the Van Allen belt as dangerous as what we believe for radiation, or is it one of those, let's just say, theories that keeps us grounded?
No, there's no real serious danger to the astronauts passing through the Van Allen belts. Not the kind of hype and stuff that people are talking about. No, it's you got to remember it's basically charged particles that have been trapped from the sun. Those charged particles are either alpha particles, electrons, that type of thing. They're soft radiation. They've been trapped in the various belts, which are controlled by the magnetic fields around the Earth, and they don't present enough of an issue. They're not in it long enough, and a lot of it is stopped simply by the craft itself. It's just not that big a deal for them to pass through that.
So what's the big hype about it? If you're saying it's not as dangerous as what we've been led on and what major scientists have been trying to explain, what is the reason? Is it to keep us grounded, or are they just not telling us something?
Well, both. Both. It's kind of like the government always denying UFOs exist. And they keep the truth and various things right out in front, right out under your nose. And you very, very plainly, you woke up this morning, you opened the door, you looked out the window, and there's a UFO sitting in your backyard. And some guy comes over from an investigative agency and says, no, there wasn't any UFO in your backyard. That was swamp gas. You know? So it's a question of you have to stand fast and know what you know. But speculation over the information that you're given, anybody can say, well, it's a radiation belt and it's too dangerous to pass through. Well, that's just baloney, because it's easier to keep us grounded. It's easier to keep us from asking questions. It's easier to keep us from growing if we don't have a desire to go there. As long as you believe you're going to get fried, I don't have a desire to get fried. I don't know about anybody else, so I'm not going to worry about it. So I want out of sight, out of mind. And so that is my feelings and my belief on it.
And on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on here as we are going to hop out for our first break of the night. Our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Dale Harder. We're talking everything NASA, UFOs, aliens. We're going the distance tonight on this topic. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am back in the cabin from my weekend away at the Paracon, and I'll be right back along with Dale and all of you right after this. Coming September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. Hi, this is Dave Scott. The event will be held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come join us for an amazing weekend of speakers talking all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, intuitiveness. Listen to great speakers like Miriam Delicato, Samantha Mowat, and the crypto guru Ronald Murphy. Get your VIP passes by going to spacedoutradio.com and clicking on the Paracon banner. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night on the program, we go north of the 49th parallel. Ghosts of the Great White North is what we'll be talking about. I'll be joined by Canadian Paranormal Investigations' Mike Morin. It's going to be a good one, my friends. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. We're also live in New Orleans on 107.7 FM, the United Public Radio Network. We're live on Revolution Radio. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. We're live on KTLK as well, the Fringe FM. Love being on with them. Thank you, Joe and Dave, for bringing us aboard. as your nighttime entertainment. Good to have you with us. Bill Cardwell he's almost out of the injured reserve, but Mike McNeil has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Orthomolecular is your password for tonight. Orthomolecular. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the password is set each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you're on social media, do me a favor, hit me up at Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. You can also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Would really appreciate that. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club, read up on the encounter online, and this week we're going to have brand new swag, t-shirts, stickers, posters for you to grab a hold of as well, and head over to patreon.com. For as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR. Tonight we're talking UFOs, aliens. Dale Harder is our guest. He's been studying this phenomena for the last 45 years. Also did a stint with NASA as an employee working on rockets. Dale, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here as well, my friend, because it's a great night anytime we get to talk about some aliens. Because I love me some aliens, my friend. You know,
all right.
And I loved what you mentioned in the first hour about the moon, about why we didn't go back. Let's talk about aliens this hour.
Okay.
Because you suspect and you believe you are an alien-human hybrid. How does that affect your DNA?
Well, you know, there's been quite a bit of controversy and quite a bit of untruth that we've been taught for most of us since we've gone to school. Human DNA actually is not just 2-strand, but actually consists of 12 strands of DNA. And, you know, we're in a process now in which the DNA of the human body is changing. It is morphing and changing. In fact, there's been a study done, and forgive me, listeners, forgive me, Dave, that I don't remember. There's a doctor who did the study. It's been relatively recent, but within the last 200 years, he found that our DNA has actually transmuted or changed by 7%. And that type of a change is so great that it literally should have taken hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years on a normal basis for evolutionary basis. So we are accelerating, and this is part of the reason that humanity is experiencing so much, shall we say, diversity and problems on planet Earth right now. Not to mention the extragalactic war that basically is being fought overhead for the control and the ownership of this planet. Humanity has come to the point where we need to grow, evolve, and take our rightful place in the universe, something which has been denied us for more than 350,000 years of the control that this planet has experienced. So there is quite a bit going on with our DNA, and one of the places, I rarely reach out to people and tell them, you know, recommend websites, this, that, and the other thing, or that kind of thing as promotional things. But there is a website that I would recommend to listeners and others that is very, very informative. And it is called Alcyone Pleiades. And Alcyone is the main son of the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. And this website is basically, it produces information, and it's available in just about every language. The quality of the video is next to none. There are several, myself and other friends, my close friend George and I look at it all the time. It is information that is given from the Pleiadian. And this site exists, you can get it on YouTube. They do not charge. They do not make any money on it. You cannot contact them. Nobody knows where they're from or where this is coming from. But the videos are of such quality and such information that they would need an entire studio of 100 people and computers blaring every moment to produce what they produce on a regular weekly basis. And it is information about our world, about everything going on, right to the current moment. And it is the type of news and information that, well, once you see these things, it's just it's going to amaze you. I would also prepare people that it will literally rip your heart out, too, because some of it is horrific. It will change you. If it doesn't affect you, I suggest that you lay down and climb into the grave because you're already dead. But it is that important of a site. And so the information is freely given by my people to Earth to try and help people to know the truth of what's going on here on this planet. The DNA, the change in us, the war, the things that are being fought, the negativity which is being caused by the draconian and race, as well as the Greys, which are their minions. All of that information is available there. And it is put forth in such a way as it's not, you have to believe it, you don't have to believe it, you got to wake up or otherwise. It's not that kind of thing at all. They simply tell you, these are things that we're seeing on your world, and, it's up to you to either look at it or not. But it will affect you. And so go to YouTube, Alcyone, ALCYONE, Pleiades, PLEIADES.com. And it doesn't matter what language you speak, they have it. So it's pretty cool, and be prepared. Be prepared to be shocked. But also, be prepared to be uplifted and enlightened, because they're going to show you some absolutely wonderful things there as well. So there's the good and the bad. But this is the kind of news, Dave, that I think that if they were to put it on the news here, like on CNN or anything like that, people they couldn't stand to watch it. It would drive them nuts. They wouldn't believe it, and the first thing they would do is scream and yell, take that off the air. We don't want our children to see those kind of things. We don't want to know this is going on. We would do the typical thing that we always do and stick our heads in the sand and ignore it. But there are atrocities and horrendous things taking place on this planet that people need to be aware of, and the truth. So I simply pass that along to people and say, judge me not. It is simply a source of information. Look for yourselves. You don't have to believe anything, but it is a good source of information.
So getting to yourself here, Dale, when you finally figured out that you believe you are a hybrid, what led you to that convincing?
Dave, every single day of my life is a major adventure. I have always been an empath, a telepath, and possessed various abilities since I was a child. I've been able to heal people without touching them. I've healed several from cancer and various other maladies. I do not take credit for that. I am not an evangelist or a religious healer or anything of that nature. I simply act as a conduit and allow healing energies to flow through me. I was trained throughout my life by various teachers in various art and forms, such as pranayama hatha yoga. I've had the awakening of the kundalini at the base of the spine. I trained with a mentor for that, for years. I've had the third eye opened, so there are various people in our own club who also understand these practices, Buddhist ways and different things. And so I have had the opportunity to actually travel the planet. I've seen most of it, and to experience some of these things firsthand. So knowing that I've been different and needing to know why and how to control it, you know, when you are a child and you can hear everybody's thoughts, it's like listening to 1,000 radio stations at one time. It'll drive you insane. So I had to be taught how to control all those things. I had to be taught how to not feel everything else that everyone else is feeling. If I was near you and you were my buddy and we were playing and you had a stomach ache, I got it. If you were happy, I could feel it. If you were hungry, I could feel that. You know, it was somewhat of a problem, but it was also somewhat of a blessing. It was a double-edged sword. And so growing up, my whole life has been that way. I knew when an animal was hurting. I could feel the energy from trees and plants and rocks and everything around me. It's very much like the movie Star Wars, for those that have seen it. It's like the Force. And the Force really is a real thing. It does exist. And it is the thing that binds us all together, because we are all from the same source. And that's what the Pleiadian believe. And as you evolve, as you move into higher and higher realms of higher energy frequency, basically we call this the third dimension here, and we have the time thing. But when you move into the fourth, fifth, sixth, and higher levels of energy and dimensional realms, things change, and your ability to do things changes. When you're in the fourth and fifth realms, where the Pleiadian are most of the time, and they do go higher, there is no such thing as lying. There is no such thing as keeping your thoughts from another. Everything you think and everything you feel, everyone else knows at the same time. And there is no deception whatsoever. We all subsist on the idea of love and service. We live to serve one another. So if humanity could simply learn to love and to serve each other, then every person would be served. And then there would be no more of this war and anger and hatred. And this is the thing that is driving this world right now. This is what the draconian overlords are doing their best to impose on Earth, because they are a race that literally subsists on the energy of negativity. So more than 350,000 years they have occupied this planet, and by as many people may have suspected, there has been more than one rise and fall of humanity on this planet. You can simply look at the megalithic cities and the various sites around the world that have been unexplained for centuries. There is definite evidence of civilizations that may have been far more advanced than we are today as a world. And so mankind is far more old than anyone would like to believe. And there has been interaction from various ET races for hundreds of thousands of years. My own people have visited this planet for more than 200,000 years. So there's a lot that's being kept from us. As long as they can initiate wars and problems and hunger and keep us locked into what is called the Babylonian money magic system, where we all have to get up and go to work, earn a paycheck and everything every day, as long as they can do that, humanity will be focused on that. And as long as we're focused on the negativity and focused on the wars and the rest of the world and the poverty and the death and all the various things, we're focused on negativity, and they're happy. So the war is being fought between the Draco and the Greys, or their minions, as well as with my people and other friendly races, the Arcturians, Assyrians, and the Pleiadian, and so forth and so on. There are more than 82 races that have visited and currently are visiting this world. So there's a great deal going on to hopefully help humanity to grow, and yet we simply cannot violate humanity's free will. So we're not free to step in and stop a nuclear war. We're not free to step in and change things. We can only provide a little nudge here and there. We're getting close to mass disclosure, very close. And most humanity, most people you talk to, can feel it in their heart and in their gut that we're on the precipice right now, that we're ready to something big to happen, and nobody really knows what it is, but we all can feel it. That is what it's about. We are basically at that point, and soon it will be known. But until we reach what I call critical mass, where enough humans realize that we need help and literally ask for it as a race, until we can do that, the rest of the races or my people cannot step in and help us, because that's a violation of the free will thing. So that's what we're all eagerly fighting for and waiting for. So I say, wake up, world.
At what point did you figure out that you were a hybrid of Pleiadian?
I knew, as I said, I knew from the very earliest childhood memories that I gravitated toward the Pleiades and the Pleiadian, and I didn't even know at that point really what flying saucers and things were. Of course, it was prevalent in the 50s and things growing up. There was the UFO flaps and all the various so-called government investigations that really were designed to hinder us rather than to help us find out what they were. But nonetheless, we grew up with all of that and the UFO movies and the day the Earth stood still and so forth and so on. And but we have gotten no closer, really, to learning the truth. It's only now that humanity is becoming aware, and part of it is because now the craft are making themselves more visible. They talk about mass hysteria and all those kind of things, kind of like when the War of the Worlds played and everybody went a little bit nutty. I'm at the point now where I literally, even though I'm a loving and serving being in what I'm here to do, I literally have to say, look, we're at the point where we've got to move on. Mother Earth, Gaia, has got to grow. She is a living, breathing entity, and everything on this planet is alive. There is not 1 square millimeter of this planet that does not have life in it or on it, as well as the planet itself. It's a living being. And it is in the process of evolving, and she's waited as long as she possibly can. She's going to move on. That's what she's doing, and that's part of the reason as we pass through the new energy fields of the Alcyone Sun and the various parts of the universe and various parts of our galaxy at this point in time. That's part of what the 2012 thing was, not the end of the world. Passing into those new energies, the Earth is evolving and the frequencies are changing. So we've got the releases of stress, we've got earthquakes, we've got volcanoes, we have cracks opening up in continents all over the world. We have all these things going on, and that is all part of the stresses and release of stresses as the Earth changes. So she's going to move on, and the rest of us either come along for the ride or we're going to perish. Now, there's no, real perishing. I mean, those that do not make the cut, as it were, or can't accept it, will simply go back to spirit, and they will then be moved to other planets or other areas where they can continue as they are now, pick up where they left off, so to speak. The rest of us that do evolve and can accept this will increase in frequency, will become more like light beings, and move in those higher frequency realms as the planet does. So the life that will be supported here must move to higher levels. And that's the part of the thing that's going on at the same time. So it won't be long until we're literally forced into that position. So as I said, the various ET races that are here that are for our benefit are doing what they can without interfering. And so they're becoming more visible. And most people can interact with them if they have love in their heart, gratitude, and truly want to have an experience without fear. craft come to my home all the time, and I have had many, many people come here to witness that, and they see it, and it changes your life, because once you see something like that or have an interaction with a craft that responds to you by flashing or communication or even telepathic, you then realize, hey, guess what? We're not alone. And that's when your life changes. So, I'm sorry, I ramble on and on.
Oh, that's great. Let me ask you this then, if you don't mind, Dale. In regards to your connection to the Pleiades and Pleiadian, have you ever had this confirmed by Pleiadians coming down, maybe taking you and explaining what your life and your path and your hybridization is all about?
Yes and no. Not, I have many times I have seen the craft, talked to them, interacted with them, and so forth in the sky. They don't literally just sit down here in the backyard. I mean, they could, but they don't. They've passed over it, I can tell you that. We've had people here, and we've even taken pictures of various craft and things that have come by. Our craft, or the Pleiadian craft, are probably most often seen these days as what people would term light craft. They look like the glowing spheres, the beautiful glowing spheres of different colors, and that's because they're basically half in and half out of phase with our planet. It's easier to cruise in that realm, if you will, than put all the energy into just pounding down into the third dimensional level here. So you can see those things and interact with those things. Darn it, I lost my train of thought there.
Just in regards to your own contact, have they ever confirmed that with you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I have had, I literally have had a lot of conversation with them and said, hey, look, guys, and including my friend George, that we meet at least once a week for lunch, and discuss it. And I would like to have a face-to-face meeting with them. I'm literally at the point where I need that family reunion, pretty much like most of us need family and friends, and there are times when you just have to have that family reunion. I'm at that point where I'm asking for that now. And it wasn't 6 months or so ago, if not a year ago, that I was asking. I said, look, guys, I'm here. I have a mission, but I don't fully know what my mission is. I need to know. And, come on down, give me a hand. I also need a little hand with health issues that I've been facing. Can you do something for me? But what I would get instead of them not actually just coming down or whatever, I might get a dream state in which I would have, and I am not one for dreaming, never have been, but I've had dreams that they call lucid dreams, and these are so lucid, they're as if I'm awake walking around in a dream and can see, touch, hear, feel, smell, and the whole kind of thing. It's the next best thing to actually being there. So I have had a couple of things happen to me like that. And I have also experienced changes in my own abilities to do things. They are not always controllable. For example, to be able to see through walls, to be able to, I had an experience. I just returned from China. I was there for 2 months. And I had an experience there where I was on a bus traveling. It was in the evening, my wife and myself and other people. And over there they tend to, they wear masks on their faces. If they are sick, because their feeling is they don't want to transmit germs to other people. Or if we are having very severe dust storms there. Their cities, it looks like pollution like we have in Los Angeles and various things, but it is actually dust, and it's caused from the construction of their cities. There's so much construction going on. And so they wear these masks, but there was a lady that was sitting in the bus behind us in a higher level, like double-decker buses, if you will. And I could look at her and I saw her face exactly as I would see anyone under normal circumstances, but she had a mask on. I could see through the mask. I could see everything. And it was driving me goofy. And for over an hour, I had this experience. So things are changing for me as well. And, so I have experiences like that. I try not to get too upset about it or worried about it. I just know that that's part of my process. That tells me that I am, and for others who may experience things like this, you are evolving. Your DNA is changing. Your frequency is becoming higher. This is part of the process. And so, so people, if you have any things like these things happening to you, dizziness or these lucid type dreams or feeling like you're in another place while you're at a different place, or two places at one time, those are part of experiencing being raised to higher energy levels. So it's a perfectly normal thing. You're not going crazy. It's welcome too. So personally, I can't wait. I just hope I'm here long enough to see it. I'm living on borrowed time, as it were. I knew I was only supposed to be here for about 40 years. I asked to stay longer, and as a consequence of that, my physical body is breaking down, and I am experiencing a lot of physical issues. Now, I've never been one to abuse my body in any way. I have never, ever been drunk in my life. I've never smoked cigarettes. I've never taken drugs. I've never done anything to my knowledge that was detrimental. And yet, there are times when I'm literally just falling apart. So my people tell me it's because of my extended stay. I said, well, can't you do something to help me? Yes and no. So there's always the provisos. But at any rate, I will stay and do what I can as long as I can. And hope and pray for the best.
Do you know what your time limit is?
No, I do not. And that would be whenever they feel I've extended or done my usefulness here. And I don't, even at this point, should we have a very serious problem here on this planet, or say many people right now are worried about this so-called thing with the Planet X or Nibiru coming and the end of the world and all these kind of things. I seriously doubt, if that were to happen, that my people would even stop and pick me up. I mean, we knew full well coming in that we could be sacrificed, or that was part of the deal. Now, I also know that if my physical body perishes, that my energy, my spirit, my entity will simply go back to where I was. And I intend to go home either way, back to my planet and continue where I was, which is normal for all of us. But and then continue with service.
Bob in the SOR Space Travelers Club is asking, have you ever met up with any other hybrid Pleiadians?
I'd have to say no, that I'm aware of. There have been a couple of people that I have met in my life that certainly were different. But unfortunately, even though I felt that they were possibly different or from another place, they weren't aware of it yet. And until they make that connection, that's up to them. But no, currently I am involved with another individual who has been filming some of the light craft quite regularly, and we intend to get together as soon as possible. And we met as a consequence of my doing the Coast to Coast show with George Norrie, and he's out in Missouri, and he films the craft quite often, so they do come, and I've instructed him on contact methods, and they are responding. So we feel that when we get together with our combined energies, that we will be able to produce, hopefully, some great films of the craft maybe coming in and maybe even getting direct contact. So that's something that one project that we're working on at this point.
You mentioned that 82 races of extraterrestrials have visited or are currently on this planet. How did you come up with that number?
That is, again, is open to conjecture, but it is information that was told me by other people who have had contact, and as well as myself receiving that information. I do get information downloads. I do get information that is put into my head at various points in time, and so it comes out that way. And then, of course, there is also the other avenue, which is the standard human research. I literally research and look at this material 24/7. And as part of service and what I'm doing here. So the Pleiadian have told me, others have told me, the research has shown me. So at this point, most of the individuals that are in the know, that are doing the research, that are crunching the numbers and so forth, have agreed pretty much on the number of 82. There has been others who have said 57. There's been others that have been in between those numbers. But the maximum that I've run across, and the one that is most often cited at this point, has been 82.
This leads to a question from Dawn in our chat room. She is asking, with as many that have visited and are currently here, why is it that they can get here, but we just haven't figured out the technology to go where they're from?
Well, that's a really great question, Don, and here's part of the answer, is that our government and the super secret space program and various things that exist out there have been doing it for quite a long period of time. There is a side to NASA that even the standard NASA doesn't know about, because each side likes to think that they're the greatest or the best, and the other doesn't even know they exist. It's kind of like the right hand not knowing what the left is doing. And the super secret space program is basically one that consists of 3 parts. There's the Solar Warden, there's the IEC, and there's the Alliance. And I'm sure some of you have heard my friend Randy Kramer, Captain Randy Kramer, speak about that. I'm sure you've heard Corey Good and David Wilcox speak about it. And I can tell you that it is absolutely a real thing. So these space programs have developed technology based on counter-engineering of downed spacecraft, and they've been doing it for more than 70 years. We have long had the ability to produce anti-gravitic craft and to take ET home, as was stated by one of the aerospace workers. Yes, Ben Rich. Mm-hmm. And, so it really does exist. The TR-3B exists. I have seen it. I've even had one come right over the house. So they've been around for quite a while. They are basically, as I would call it, machine craft. In other words, they are hardcore machines, wires, electronics, things like that. When it comes to the craft like the Pleiadian and others fly, they have a physicality, but they are also a living entity. And our people and other races that have developed the craft are literally hooked into these things. They are a symbiotic relationship. So it's a far, far more advanced technology. But the basics have been here for over 70 years, and that's been kept from us, along with free energy, along with biotechnology that I've known about and that Randy Kramer speaks of, and so forth, where they can literally regrow any part of a body or even repair a dead body or any of those kind of things based on resonance and laser technology and holographic technology, which is all very easy to do with current state-of-the-art technology. But they've been doing this for far, far longer than that. And so I have seen that stuff. I understand that stuff, even with the companies that I own, the laser company and the speaker company. And the speakers are coherent wave sound, which is unlike any other kind of speaker on the planet. So these technologies combined, as you've often seen in Star Trek and various other shows, and they wave a little instrument over the dermal regenerator. It makes a few sounds. It's all about frequency. It's all about resonance. And all of matter in the universe has specific frequency, has specific response, and when certain things resonate together, then almost anything is possible. If I could change, for example, the resonant frequency of my physical body to the resonant frequency of the star Antares, for example, I would end up where Antares is instantaneously, because no two things in the universe have the same frequency and can occupy two different places at the same time. So it's just a matter of resonance and energy. So I would say to our listeners that there is only one thing that exists in the universe, and that is light. Light has the ability to exist in two forms. Either light as we see light, which is moving, or light when it's physically at rest, and that is what we call matter. And that is why the equation from Einstein, the very famous E equals mc squared, works. It is literally releasing light energy from frozen matter, or light that is resting. And that is all that exists in the universe. So it's all about resonance, and Tesla was the one that knew all those secrets.
Let's get to a question from one of our new listeners, Beyond the Omniverse, and they're asking, is multidimensional experiences based on mind, heart, physical, spiritual, or soul, and then henceforth universal?
I fully understand that. That's a multi-part question. But if I understand it enough, it is partly, as I said, mostly it is a resonant type of thing. It is energy. And the energy that we are as a physicality, what people have to understand, I guess, is that the physical body does not radiate energy. It is the energy that of who we are that radiates to create the physical form. We are very much like onions. We have layers of energy. And that's where you get into studying the chakras, where you get into studying the meridians and all the various energy points of the body. It is all of those energies that literally congeal to form our physicality and place us in this lower energy level. By manipulating those energies, and that's from the heart, that's from the soul, that's from the mind, all the various portions, it is possible to physically travel anywhere in the universe, into any dimensionality, into any energy level. That is what the evolutionary process is all about. Every single thing that exists in the universe came from the first single point, what we call the prime creator. So we're all trying to do one thing. We're trying to learn as much as we possibly can through experience, and we're trying to return to where we originally came from. So that's basically going back to the Creator and sharing everything that we've learned. We're all aspects of one another, simply a facet, if you will, on a gemstone of one another, of the Oversoul. And so we tend to think that we're all separate here, but we're not. We are all one and all connected in every shape and form. I hope that helps. I hope I answered that correctly.
Absolutely. Let's get to some more audience questions here because they're coming fast and furious. Craig is wondering, how can you be certain, Dale, that all grays are bad?
You know, I'll answer that from my point of view. I cannot answer it that they are all bad. However, I will tell you that I am an abductee as well. And the last time that happened to me was in the summer solstice in 1986. And at that point in time, I was going through what do I want to call it, a period, a growth period, of whatever. And I wanted to go home in the worst possible way. I wanted off of this mud ball with everything, every breath that I drew. I just couldn't take the stone knives and bearskins anymore. And so I really wanted to have a UFO experience. I wanted to meet ETs. I wanted to go home, blah, blah, blah. The problem was that I was so uninformed at that point of what I was really asking for. And again, the old adage, be careful what you ask for, you might get it. Well, I did. I got it. I met with the Greys, and they abused and used me in ways that I don't even want to reveal. So, and I have the scars left to prove it. But, you know, it served its purpose. It taught me two things, you know. There are the good ones and there are the bad ones. You just have to know what you're asking for. So after that experience with those series of Greys, and then learning through all those years from then till now and more as every day, I finally decided, since most of the Greys tend to either work with or for the Draco, the Draconian race, or the reptilians, I just decided the best thing to do with it is simply not have anything to do with them at all. So that's my own personal choice. It is almost a judgment. I will refrain from judging them, but and I can love them from a distance, but it doesn't mean I have to interact with them. So I've just decided on my part, no, I don't wish to interact with the Greys. I don't want to have to sit there and try and figure out if you're one of the good guys or one of the defectors. That's not my business. You know, we'll worry about that some other point in time. And do I want to meet with the Draconian? Never, ever, ever again. No way, shape, or form. And there are supposedly good Draconians that have changed and came over to the other side too. But, you know, when in doubt, don't. It's simple. That's all I can tell you about that. So that's my own personal choice.
Shar is asking, Dale, do you think there will be a problem with religions when aliens finally come out with disclosure?
I think there's a problem with it already, actually. Religions have done a really, really wonderful job of isolating people, in my opinion. Okay, and I'm not judging religions. I was raised as a very staunch Catholic, and went through some issues with the Catholic Church that, for their sake, I will not reveal here, but resulted in me leaving the church when I was about 18 years of age, and I was very involved. I used to. I was a money counter, if that makes any sense. For that, every Sunday they have volunteers and people who count money for them and take care of the bill paying and things like that. And I was involved in that. I was involved in the youth programs. I was a song leader for the church at the guitar masses for the Catholic Church, and involved in some of the youth groups and various things, and loved the church. But something happened that changed all of that, and so at the time it was difficult, but what it did was propel me into traveling the rest of the world. And as I did so, I availed myself of every other religion that I could come in contact with. Didn't matter who it was, what country I was in. And as I did that, I began to learn that every religion thinks they're the one. Every religion has a piece of the puzzle, and nobody really knows what they have. So in the end, for me, I began to understand that from a human perspective, unless you had the creative force or God or whatever you believe in your heart to start with, you weren't going to find it anywhere else in the world or in any particular building. So it's something that you feel and understand from yourself. It's a question of the right and wrong kind of thing. So that's where I learned that. And then, of course, knowing as a Pleiadian what we believe and believing in the prime creative force and not so much in a God or Godhead or a person or anything of that nature. The higher up the ladder you get as it over millions of years of evolution and higher frequency, you begin to learn a few more things that have been kept hidden from you. And those things have been kept hidden from humanity. So that will change. Perspective will change. But the revealing of ETs, yes, is going to cause quite a bit of difficulty. From the standpoint that people are going to realize, hey, guess what? We haven't been told all the truth. There's been a lot that's been kept from us, a lot that's been shielded from us. And a lot of the people that we thought we trusted aren't what they appeared to be. So it's going to be a little traumatic. There are going to be some people who literally are going to jump out the window. And then there's going to be others that can accept it with no problem whatsoever. But I believe that the majority of people on this planet are now ready to accept the fact we're not alone. It's the only thing that makes sense. And once they do that, once we wake up and that critical mass has been met, then we're going to have the outright visitations. The government's never going to come forth and give us disclosure. They can't. They absolutely, positively cannot. If they did, they would just crack Pandora's box slightly and tell us something of UFOs, and what will happen is that the first thing the mass and humanity is going to realize is, geez, if that's true, what else have you kept secret from us? And they are not prepared to tell us that. So they simply cannot. And they're revealing little bits and pieces here and there. We've been spoon-fed, as it were. So it is, soft disclosure is taking place as we speak, but disclosure will come from humanity itself asking for it. It is not going to come from our governments.
Over on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, Eric is asking, so Dale, if there is one thing your ET race wants to tell us on Earth, what would that be?
What would that be? To value and treasure and love one another, to serve one another, to stop trying to kill the guy in front of you on the road and, the road rage and things like that, to pull our heads out of our cell phones and the addictive electronics that we're now being supplied with. These are drugs. These are literally drugs that have been given to humanity to keep your focus off the truth. And I mean, it is at the point of being rampant. When I was in China, there is not a single person on that entire country that doesn't have a cell phone in their hand at every moment of the day. They sleep next to them. They are literally glued to them. And we're getting the same way here. It wasn't just before I left that we had an incident here close to the house where I was sitting in an intersection, a very busy 5-way intersection, by the way, in which a woman literally walked across the road in front of all the cars whizzing through the intersection in a green light and never, ever once looked up from her cell phone. We're in a stupor, and we don't know what's going on. So my people would simply say, please, look at what information we have to offer you on, like Alcyone, Pleiades. Wake up. Look at what's happening to your world and where you are. That's the only thing they want for us. They want us to know the truth, and they want us to know that we need help. And once we can do that, help will come.
We got about 2.5 minutes before we're going to go to break, and I am way behind on the questions here, so we'll probably continue them in hour number 3. Gail is asking, are you retired from your day job now? And why didn't you get your health issues repaired by the technologies you just described a few minutes ago?
No, I'm basically semi-retired. Have the two businesses. While it may sound all glorious and glamorous and so forth, the businesses don't always generate that great a deal of capital, and our structuring is not designed so that we make massive amounts of money off of it. As far as from NASA, I no longer work for them. I left work because of health, and literally just had to slow down because I was working full-time for NASA and running two businesses at the same time. So, you get to a point where you have to slow down. I'm 62. I can no longer do the things that I did physically when I was 25. As far as the technology is concerned, it is still not available at your doctor's office, for example, and that is something that Randy Kramer, myself, and others are working on, and have been given permission to allow Earthlings to know about, to allow humanity to know about. It is there, it is available, it is time that we had it. But just imagine, for example, if that kind of technology were available. Imagine if you didn't have to go to work every day. Imagine if one ever again had to worry about food or water or were forced to use fossil fuels. If all those things disappeared overnight, what kind of world would we have?
Probably a pretty damn good one, because I know I could perfect laziness.
You would not be lazy because you would be free to explore who you are, something that you've not been given the chance to do yet because you're still functioning on that Babylonian money magic system.
That's true, but my Vegas budget says I need it. And on that note, we are going to hop out here for our second break of the night. Dale Harder is our guest, ufologist, alien hybrid with the Pleiadians. Interesting show, and more of your questions coming up with Dale and myself right here on the Mighty SOR right after this. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. During the break, make sure you check out some really cool features on our website and what we are up to these days. We got a new look on the site. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I would appreciate that. We'll talk to all of you right after this break. Looking for a great weekend getaway this fall? Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Come on up to the heart of British Columbia for the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, being held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Speakers from all over North America are coming to discuss Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and intuitiveness for the 3-day event, September 29th to October 1st. For more information, go to spacedoutradio.com and click on the Caribou Paracon banner and book your tickets today. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Ghosts of the Great White North. We step back into the paranormal above the 49th parallel. Let you know about some really cool ghost stories happening here in Canada. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. We get going at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live in Noonan, Georgia on WQEE 99 Rock the Key, home of The Walking Dead. We're live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio on KTLK, the Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. No Bill Cardwell for the password tonight. It's set by Michael McNeil. And your password for tonight, if you're an SOR space traveler, orthomolecular. Orthomolecular is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as the password has been set for the night. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, Player.fm, TalkStream Live, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com. where we have a plethora of features for you, including the Encounter Online, our great news section that we got going. We also have some swag coming up. T-shirts, stickers, posters. I'll sign every poster as long as you want it. That's the way we're going to do it around here. And you could go to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month. You could become a space traveler of SOR as well. Tonight we are talking with Dale Harder. He's a ufologist, worked for NASA. He is an ET hybrid with Pleiadians. Dale, welcome back.
Thank you.
Continuing on, you say that, is there a place where people can view videos of some of these light ships that you have had to encounters with?
Yes. As I said, I'm working with an individual that has been filming them, and we're working on a joint project where we hope to combine our energies. This other individual, I'm not at liberty yet to give full information on, but I can give the website where his videos are posted and a user number so that people can access them, so they're available to look at. And these are pretty fascinating. So it'll also provide the opportunity for those that may have been seeing things like this to interact. But I can do that, and so for those of you that are listening, if you'll look for Black Sky Watch Videos. That's Black, B-L-A-C-K, Sky, S-K-Y-W-A-T-C-H, videos. And you can get that on the net at https://Vimeo, Vimeo.com. That's Vimeo, Vimeo.com /user. And the number is 465603005. That's the user number that comes immediately after user /videos. And this will get you into the Black Sky Watch videos that are posted there. There's about a dozen and various things that when the ships come and the light ships and what they do. We're working on some that now, like I said, that we hope with our combined energies will provide us with more direct contact. And I've instructed my partner to use certain contact methods, which he's done already and had results, where the ships actually stop flash, respond, et cetera, to the contact. So we're hoping for some pretty exciting stuff coming up.
Sounds excellent. Let's get back to some questions here from our audience, because they are built up.
Absolutely.
Stone wants to know, Dale, what do you think the orange plasma sphere? And have you seen any ETs or UFOs morph?
The orange plasma sphere and the light ships are basically one and the same. So our ships, the light ships, would typically look like that. They can come in the color of blue, orange, red, or what we call xenon white. And they can morph. They can change shape and size. So, they can be pretty spectacular. They might be seen as one or two, or typically in groups up to 6 or more. And they've been, I'd have to say, they've been putting on some great light shows all around the world now. So whatever you do, wherever you go, keep looking up. Ask for it. The more you ask, the more you're going to see. Just remember, like I said, ask for it in terms of gratitude, in terms of love, and curiosity is fine, but remember that they're not here to do a dog and pony show. They will interact with you if you truly wish it and have no fear. If you're afraid, they will not interact at all, because they don't want to take a chance on making you afraid or harming you in any way.
Let's get to another question. Daryl is wondering, Dale, do you know what all of these sonic booms, strange space sounds are for, what their purpose could be?
Not entirely, no. Although, unfortunately, I am subject to one of them. It's called the hum, and there are millions of people around the planet that can hear it. You can Google it. Just type in the hum, H-U-M, and read about it or learn about it. But it's an insidious humming sound, which sounds from a distance like a diesel engine that is sitting at idle and rumbling away. It's definitely low frequency. It's an infrasound, and it is designed literally to drive human beings crazy, and there's been many people who have committed suicide from it. The problem is that once you hear it, you can't unhear it. So it's not something to desire, but it is something to be aware of. As far as the other sounds, I have heard a few. Trumpeting sounds, banging sounds, various things like that. I do not have the answer as to what those are.
Let's move on here. Eric is asking, do you believe that Nikola Tesla was given all the technologies by extraterrestrials?
No, I more rather believe that Nikola Tesla was one of us. And he came for a purpose, again, to serve. And his every once in a while, every so many years, decades, what have you, certain entities are allowed to come in and interact. And that's where we've had so many awesome individuals like Kepler, Tycho, Brahe, Newton, Tesla, et cetera, Einstein. And they were for the purpose of advancing humanity.
Don is asking, do you believe that there was a pact between the United States government and extraterrestrials in regards to abduction?
Yes. Absolutely.
Do you think that was Eisenhower?
It began during that time, and as he stated, as they even said, it got out of control. Beware of the military complex. The whole thing with MJ-12, all of it, yes, it did happen. In fact, my people met with the government at the same time, and as the Greys and the Dracos, and the only thing that we asked was that we would give any help, we would give any information, anything whatsoever, except weapons, to humanity and to help this world to advance in any way that we could if the United States government and the other big governments involved would give up nuclear weapons. And they refused flat out. They said no. So they went with the Draco and the Greys and allowed them to abduct people, to do experimentation on humans and hybrid humanization, so that they could gain technologies. And some of the technologies that come through have been from that. And the technologies that they've been given have still been pittances in comparison to what's available. But that is out of control, by the way.
Moving on here, Beyond the Omniverse is asking, is technology or transhumanism supposed to supersede our natural changes?
No. In fact, my people, myself, others are very, very worried about this. So forth, this transhumanism, this move toward sentient robots, etc., Terminator, that type of thing. We're very worried about that. It's something that humanity's going to have to be very, very careful of, and it could get out of hand quite easily. So the Pleiadian, the Alcyone Pleiadian videos will deal with that very well, far better than I could. So I highly recommend that you look into those. There's about 100 videos or more there for you to look at, too. So start off at the beginning, read about DNA, read about the interaction, read about our people, etc., etc.
Christopher is asking, if the off-worlders have such rules relating to taking people off Earth freely, then why do they abduct against our will and kidnap our citizens?
There are races that exist that do not operate within those parameters. The more benevolent and more advanced races all adhere to non-interference directives and non-breaking of humanity's free will. But we have stood by idly for so long, not idly, but stood by and watched humanity suffer for so long that we are stretching the rules as much as possible without breaking that rule. We are in that war with other races, with the Draco, with the Greys. I can say with Corey's input, with Randy's input, with my knowledge, with others, David Wilcock, etc., that the Greys have been basically eradicated from the solar system. There will be very little abduction things going on anymore. There is some that is taking place by other groups, such as Me Lab and things like that, and they are blaming it on the Greys, but mostly the Greys have been chased out, and the Draco are on the run, but they are pulling out all the stops.
All right, let's move on to the question here as we continue on with our audience, because we always like to get them involved. Kim is asking, how did you get the alien races to stop abducting you?
Well, first of all, I believe that each of us as a sovereign entity, as we sit now, does not mean we tend to think of ourselves as not being connected, but we are connected. We can call upon the energy of the universe, the energy of prime creation. If it makes you happy to call it the white light of Christ, whatever serves you, but invoke that energy, place a wall of energy around yourself, and simply refuse. Say, that's it, it's enough. I refuse. You will not harm me. You will not take me any longer. I won't permit it. And that's basically what I do. I simply, I refute it. I won't allow it. I basically also know when I'm being approached by others. And if you're not certain, ask. Okay? When in doubt, don't. It's just that simple. But it does require assertion. You must simply stop it because you have the right to do so. And once they are given that order, they really cannot disobey it.
Let's get to another question here. This one coming from Zippy in the Revolution Radio chat room, asking, what was different about you compared to other kids in class that noticed and avoided you when you were growing up?
I don't know that it was so different, except that they could, every entity, every being, animal, plant, or otherwise, can sense energy. People around you can sense your mood. They can sense who and what you are. You can maybe meet a person for the first time and not even say a word to one another and have an instant dislike of them or an instant like of them. It is all based on energies. It is all based on how we interact with one another. Other children could sense and feel that I was different, and as a consequence, or they would see me do different things that they didn't like. They wanted to run and jump and play in the mud and jump rope and throw the ball around and things like that, and I was too busy looking at science and reading and learning and trying to be a good student in school. Those were the things that interested me. So as a consequence, I was weird. Okay, that's all there was to it. I was weird.
Aren't we all, if we're in this field at this time? Let's go to Twitter here and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Canadian Joe is asking, Dale, do you believe then that Jesus Christ himself was a hybrid?
Well, that again, that is strictly my personal belief. But yes, I believe that Christ was acting on behalf, but is also from another race. And what he was teaching was not incorrect either, but it was on a level that humanity could basically understand or accept. It's here again, not breaking the free will thing, putting everything, couching it in metaphor. Those that have ears to hear, hear. Those that can see, etc. And I do believe that he represented the office of Christ and the Christ energy. But that, again, as I said, it's a little different when you get to the higher levels because you understand it in a different light, literally.
From Twitter again at hashtag Space Out Radio, this one coming from Wisteria. Dale, do you believe extraterrestrials are telepathic, or do they speak some different languages as they are seen all over the world?
Each race has its own indigenous language and speaks those languages, but most of the higher advanced races are telepathic. And communicate that way. Over great distances, they don't have to be near one another to communicate. I mean, after all, like, for example, if I were to go out tonight and contact the craft, my telepathy reaches into the universe. I don't have to worry about distance or anything like that. It's instantaneous. And so wherever they are, wherever my thought reaches them. So that's the way it works.
We're almost caught up on the questions here. Two more. This one comes from Beyond the Omniverse again. Dale, do you feel that you are beyond this universe?
No, not beyond it. I'm certainly in it. I'm certainly part of it. But again, I'm a small facet of it. And yet, even as a small facet, I'm still connected to the whole, so I can experience the whole at any time.
And from Bill Cardwell, what is it about the human race that attracts so many alien races? Do we just throw a great party?
Yes, actually, in a sense, that's true. You have to understand from the standpoint that humanity represents no less than 12 different races, possessing no less than 12 different races of genetic material. We are a soup. And we have been created by so many interventions and messing that essentially the universe is fascinated with humanity. And this planet, while life is the norm in the universe, not the exception, but the norm, this planet still offers the ability to incarnate in a physical form at a lower level where experience is so quick and so fast and so deep that there are many, many, many that wish to be here for these experiences, because you can change, learn, and experience more at this level than you can in 1,000 other opportunities. So right now, Earth is the place to be. That's where everybody wants to be.
And we got good-looking women and cold beer. I mean, that always helps a party as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
the finest of...
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you on that. I want to get into the topic of summoning here, because you have the ability, and I have had other people on this show who have had the ability as well, to summon UFO craft at any time, anywhere. I would love for you to describe to our audience how that works.
It's a very simple process, actually. For me, when I do so, I simply go out. I either am here at home or wherever I happen to be. If it's a nice enough night, it's warm, the stars are out, that type of thing, I simply go out, sit down, relax, and concentrate. I go into a little bit of a meditative state. I extend my consciousness into the universe and literally just call my people and others. I invite other craft and other people to come. I'm not a snob, but certainly I would like to see my own as well. And I always put in the word that, hey, I do not wish any interaction with those that are not here for the purpose of uplifting or helping mankind or being a benevolent race. But any others are absolutely welcome. And so I do my best to visualize and to literally reach out with thought. And to when I come across a craft, sometimes I can actually see it and envision it wherever it is, and I simply bring them into my position, almost like you would if you were using Google Earth. And you zero in and say, this is my location in the galaxy, this is my location in the solar system, this is my location on the planet, etc., etc. And you literally bring them right down to you. And it is done with open mind, done with absolute gratitude, and done with total love and no fear whatsoever. And then they come. It's just that simple.
So, I know there is one gentleman out of California who believes that you have to have an open mind, heart, and soul and put in a pure thought to a place in the sky, and then they will appear. Is that something what you do as well?
It's very similar, yes. I know the individual that you're talking of. I can't think of the name at the moment, but I do know who you're talking of. I've seen. And yeah, it's the very same thing. Basically, I use a similar technique to what Dr. Greer uses in the Vedic technique, the meditative technique. But it's simply, because we are unlimited beings. Everyone is an unlimited being. The problem is that you have been taught your whole life that you are limited, and that's the false flag. That's the falsity. You are not limited. You are unlimited. And when you finally begin to realize that and think that way, then you have the ability to reach out into the universe and contact the various life forms and beings that are there. And they will gladly interact with you. They don't come for dog and pony shows. That's not what they're here for. Even if you're curious, you can say, hey, I'm curious. I want to meet you. I'm not afraid. Please come. And they will. And they'll do things for you that will absolutely blow you away. Some of the first contacts that you can expect, I'll tell you this much, they appreciate patience. So they may not come the first time, the second time, or the third time, but you keep doing it. They appreciate patience and persistence. And they keep schedules, believe it or not. Go at the same time, the same place, and just keep trying. Eventually you're going to get results. One of the first things that they're going to see or that they're going to do is what I call the flashbulb technique. And the flash bulb is that you may be looking into a dark area of the sky where there basically aren't any stars, and all of a sudden you're going to see this single point source of light that flashes at you just like a camera flash. Push, really bright. You can't miss it. That is one of the craft signaling you. Now you can mentally speak back to them telepathically, or I have used lasers. I have some high-powered lasers that I use, but you never, ever point the lasers at the craft, and you never, ever point a laser into the sky during the time periods in which commercial aircraft could be flying. Not anywhere in the sky, lest you get yourself in trouble or possibly harm another. But by using the laser, when the time is permissible and the airports are basically quiet or shut down at night, you can contact the craft. And when you flash at them and these ships flash back at you, and you send 3 pulses and they send 3 or 4 pulses, you know darn well you're not communicating with a meteor or something like that. And that's pretty exciting. At that point, your life changes because you realize you're not alone.
How long does it take for you to get results from your summoning?
Sometimes as quickly as 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes I can sit there for hours before they decide they're ready to come. And I have had all manner of craft, physical craft as well as the light craft. And it's not always just my people. Like I said, I invite many different races. And I've had every kind of design and shape of ship that you can imagine come through. So, you know, it's not unusual at all.
What do they look like for people who haven't done this?
What look like, the ships or the people? Or
yeah, the craft that you're seeing.
The craft? Some of the craft that I've had come through, I'll tell you or relate with you a very exciting sighting. My wife, obviously, is, as I tell everyone, she's a very, very loving and wonderful soul. She's very Zen, pure Chinese. I went to China to get her when we married, actually, 11 years ago. But she's a very Zen individual, and so nothing flusters her, nothing bothers her. You know, it's just like a Buddhist monk most of the time. But so that means that if the craft landed in the backyard, they came to the side door and knocked, and she answered it, she'd say, just a minute, let me get Dale for you. You know, nothing would bother her at all. But we had last August 19th to be exact, was our anniversary. And we had decided to go out to dinner, and that was on a Friday. So she had to do a couple other things, and we couldn't get to go out until Sunday. And it was 5:45 in the evening, as we were preparing to leave to go to Olive Garden, no less, which is her favorite place to eat. Go figure, an Italian-Chinese person, but nonetheless. So we're getting ready to go out the door. There's a clock right at my door, and I'm pretty anal about a lot of things like time and stuff like that, so I'm always looking. And we're walking out the door, and I always know when they're around. I get a feeling. I can't describe it exactly, but I just know when they're around. So we're going out the door. She goes down 2 steps. She's out by the car, in between our 2 houses, our neighbors. And it's a beautiful blue sky with puffy white clouds here and there. And I stop at the top of the steps as I'm closing the door behind me, and I said, they're here. And she looked at me, she says, what? I said, they're here. And we're looking around, and I looked at the sky, and there's nothing. And all of a sudden, as I'm standing there, I close the door, and out of the blue right in front of us pops a beautiful light craft, a white sphere, and then another, and then another. Finally, 5 spheres pop right out, right between the houses, right over our heads. And they continued to dance around and flutter back and forth, and they'd take off from one position to another position as fast as they could, and just all these manner of different things. And I'm talking to them. I'm talking to them out loud. And as I would talk to them or send them a message telepathically, I could hear them. And they would respond also by flashing. and they would flash again, even as bright as they were. They would flash 2-3 times brighter than that, like a flash bulb. And she says, "Oh, look, they're flashing every time you talk to them." I says, "Yeah, they'd either do it all together or they one or two would." And there was one that was slightly larger and a little more elongated than the others, and I kind of figured that was the group leader. And so they did this for 3 minutes and 45 seconds. And then they kind of lined up, headed toward the north, one after the other, like peas in a pod, and they just went pop, 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 and they all disappeared into the horizon, and they were gone. It was the coolest thing in the world. So, you know, and the only thing my wife said during the whole thing, she says, "My God, look at that." You know? So, but that's not unusual to see stuff like that, you know. But still, as much as I enjoy that, or as much as I love the interaction, I never, ever get tired of it. It always makes me high as a kite. And for the rest of the evening, I know I never touched the chair. I was 6 inches above it most of the night. I was literally floating on a high. So it's just that kind of thing all the time. That is some of the craft. I've had one come through here not too long ago, which was an extreme wedge. It's a 3-point triangle, but a long, drawn-out wedge, very, very pointy. And it had 6 lights on it, one on the very nose or tip, one in the bisected sides, and one at each end of the angles on the back. And I would not even have noticed the craft as it came through, and I was asking for a visitation. It came from the south, went to the north, and it traversed the entirety of the horizon from south to north in about 2.5 seconds. So it was really moving, but it came down low enough that all I could see was the outline and the lights. And it really zipped across. So they wanted to make it known that they were responding, but they didn't have time to stay and chat, you know. But so that's not unusual. I've seen spheres, like metallic spheres. They look like a silver, dull silver. I have seen what looked like a pill-shaped. I have seen cylinders, like the cigar cylinder type shape. And I've also seen the TR-3B, which is one of our military craft. I had one come right over the house and sit right on top of me here long enough to make sure that I knew it was there. They actually diverted their direction. They were coming across the back of the house line, as it were, and literally, while I was sitting there, changed direction and came right over the top of me. So they made sure I knew they were there. And when I looked up with my binoculars at them as they went over the house, it was so big, when I used the binoculars, all I could see was ship. So they went right out toward the Cleveland Hopkins Airport. A small light craft came out of it, did an arc, an angle up over the top, flew around it for a while, and they hovered over the airport area. But not a single individual ever reported it. And dummy me, I had a camera in my pocket and was so blown away with it, I forgot to pull the camera out and try and take a picture. So, you know, a lot of times you forget. You're just caught up in the moment.
When you were summoning craft, do you know who or what you're summoning, or are you just putting the energy out there and seeing who picks it up?
I am basically putting the energy out there. I'm like a wideband antenna, wideband transmitter. And, you know, I may name specific races that I would like to see, but I also leave it open-ended in that I say that any other race that would like to visit that is benevolent and here for good, and please feel free to stop by, no problem. And so I leave it at that, you know. But usually I start off by summoning or asking for visitation from Pleiadian and extend that. So whoever shows is the ones that are in the area that can stop by. And sometimes it's a very quick pass, and other times it's a very, very slow saunter over and, hey, we're here, how about this? You know, one night, one of our, let's see, we had 1, 2, 3 of us from the club were there, and the ship came across the backyard, and relatively low. It was a beautiful elongated orange orb, and Aaron, one of the directors of the club actually had enough wherewithal to pull out his cell phone and take pictures, and we got some pretty good shots of it as it went across. So it does happen, you know, but he just happened to think about it instead of being blown away by staring at it. And, you know, because it's exciting. It is very exciting. You know, your heart's going to race, your mind is going to run, and you're going to be blown away with the visitation.
Before we get to more audience questions here, I want to ask you your thoughts on MUFON and SETI. Do you believe they are projects that are actually helping enhance the knowledge we have of ufology, or do you think that there is some sort of, you know, reluctance to release certain information?
I still tend to believe that they are not for our absolute benefit, and that is difficult to say because Tom, our co-director, is state director for MUFON in our club. We have past directors for MUFON in our club. We are connected to MUFON. And as I tell them all the time, you know, there are few that will listen to me. I mean, most people know of my involvement, and I'm free with my information to our club members. But, you know, they say, well, nobody could possibly see that many craft or this and that or have that many interactions until, of course, they come and sit out with me and have their own sightings. And many of them have. The difficulty is that I have never filed a report, a UFO report with MUFON or any other organization because I don't need to try and prove what they are. I don't need to be convinced what they are. I know what they are. I know what I'm seeing. And I don't need to convince anybody else that I'm seeing them. These, as far as I'm concerned, these are my interactions that are for my benefit. I've asked for it. But I'm willing to share that. So it's not like I'm trying to say, Dave, hey, look at me, I'm special. Look at me, I can call UFOs. Look at me, I'm an ET. That it has nothing to do with it whatsoever. I'm not here to try and get a following of people or to be hero worship or anything of that nature. That's not part of my plan. My mission is to serve and to try and help people to understand the truth and the things around them. Even if they violently disagree with me, that's okay. It's not necessary for them to agree. What's necessary is for them to at least pull their heads out of their cell phones long enough to realize there's something else going on. And that's my mission. That's my purpose. So no, I don't think that MUFON has existed in the past for our best benefit. And I definitely don't think any of the other programs were Project Blue Book, Project Grudge, Project Sign, any of those. Those were all designed to explain things away. Most of the reporting these days is designed to explain something away rather than to prove why it existed or that it could be alien or ET in origin. I tend to stay away from it.
Are you disappointed in SETI, especially considering that so many people are having these experiences, yourself included, and they're saying that they still really haven't found a concrete signal yet that there is life out there, maybe outside our universe?
Yes, absolutely. I'm disappointed in SETI. Again, that's like the NASA thing, never a straight answer. It's designed to keep you looking in that direction and thinking, hey, we're doing everything we can to contact ET, except look up and talk to the ones that are already here. You know, it's a smokescreen, and it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Any of the civilizations that have developed that would have been using antiquated radio technology or radio waves as communication have long since evolved so far beyond that point that any of the radio waves that would have come Earth's direction have long since come and passed us. They're never going to hear that stuff. It's gone. All right, so looking for that and or trying to see a laser beam from hundreds of light years away or something is a waste of time. It's not going to happen. I think they're wasting our time. They're wasting money. They're wasting effort. You want to see the truth? Look at a crop circle. They want to see the truth? Look at all the information that's here in front of us. They want to see the truth? Come on out and let's talk to a craft and have one come down, and then tell me that there is no radio communication. They don't communicate with radio. They communicate with mind, with heart. So they're many, many, many terahertz away from where they need to be.
Why do you think then that there is such a lack of studying, shall we say, by the SETI researchers, by many, if not most, MUFON researchers in regards to how to communicate? I mean, it seems if you're being able to pick these off anytime you want in the sky, that maybe somebody should be researching you from one of these groups to not only prove that you're doing it, number one, but number two, to try and bring in set information that these instances are having on people.
Well, it's a question very simply of they can't. What I represent, what I am saying, can change the face of the world. And the draconian overlords, the Illuminati, those that are in the cabal in the very top end of the world that are controlling everything and are doing their very best to keep humanity stupid, to keep humanity from developing, to keep us from learning who we are and attaining our rightful position in the universe, they're going to keep doing that. So, the best way to make no progress is to pretend that we're making progress. And as long as, we're doing stupid stuff like launching space shuttles and launching chemical rockets that are not much further removed than fireworks, that kind of junk, we're always looking at what one hand is doing while the other hand is doing all the magic. It's simply a matter of truth. So until we can get the powers to be out of the way and start accepting, as I said, my dear friend Kathy says, the fact that in a court of law we've got more than enough evidence to prove without a doubt UFOs are here and visiting us, that UFOs exist. And yet it's been suppressed by every religious organization and every government as long as we can think. So we've got to remove the restrictions, got to remove the controls. And that is when this Earth, this planet, and humanity is going to change. And it's going to happen like a wave. It's going to be very, very quick. But it will be for the better. And, it can be a utopia, literally, because there's so much to be gained, so much to be shared. And it's like I said, if we eliminated the Babylonian money magic system and suddenly tomorrow nobody had to get up and go to work, that everything was provided for us, if people were allowed to explore who they are and were allowed to become what they're good at and share that and serve others, there's no limit to what can be accomplished. And that's what would happen. So it's a feel-good kind of thing, and the Draconians are not about the feel-good stuff.
Do you feel, then, that SETI or MUFON really want to solve this UFO phenomena? Do you think maybe that's their goal, or do you think just doing what they're doing?
I do not believe they want to at all, no. They are doing everything they can to keep us thinking that they're trying to solve it when, in fact, they're doing nothing.
I don't get it. Do you obviously have a lot of friends in MUFON. Did you catch the drama this weekend with John Ventry? Do you know who John is?
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that?
Hangar One and all that kind of stuff. I mean, here, it really blows me away when you look at the stuff that they're doing. Okay, we've got 70,000 files from Hangar One, John Ventry, and all those people over there. They're all stored in this mothballed old rusty hangar, which they're not, of course. That would be pretty dumb, and keep showing it on these dumb shows. For all these years, they've had all these files. Now, all of a sudden, they're pulling out some of these files and sharing them with us. A lot of the information they're even giving is not correct, according to my own director, and or the truth has been stretched to the point where it's not reality at all. So there's a lot of contempt within their own group, if you will. And believe me, I have nothing but the highest respect in the world for Tom Workman, our co-director and state director for MUFON. He's a serious researcher. Believe me, I've never met one better. And he even has difficulty accepting what I have to say, and that's okay. But then again, like I said, it is not my job to sway people. It is not my job to try and prove that I'm Mr. Wonderful, or otherwise I'm not. Each will come to his own understanding in their own time. But Tom is a hardcore scientific research individual. And as long as I believe that you maintain that, hey, I'm a scientist and engineer too, but I'm probably one of the few that you're going to meet that sees the world in color. And my palette has 64 million colors on it, okay, and that's an old one. Most scientists are black and white, and that's it. So I don't need to taste it, touch it, feel it, smell it, or otherwise to know that it exists. I already know that. So I need to, these people need to develop those feelings for themselves. But even Tom is an experiencer, and all the people in our core group, over 36 in the core of our club, are either experiencers or contactees directly. So it is a very adept group, and we've been around since 1952. So...
Do you think, getting back to this weekend's drama that John Ventry was involved with, apparently, for those who don't know, he put a pretty racist remark on his Facebook page, since deleted it, and now there are many in the field of ufology, whether they're involved with MUFON or not, who are calling for his resignation. Do you believe that that's something that should happen? Have you heard about this story?
Well, only a small amount, because, like I said, I do not, and truthfully, I do not place a lot of importance on the MUFON area. And like I said, with everything that I have seen or done, I've shared it all with my club members, with my MUFON directors and everything as well. But it is not important to me to file a MUFON report where I know it is going to be a dusty, moldy old report that's going to lay there for half a century and nobody's going to bother to do anything about it. It's a light in the sky, and lights in the sky are not where we need to be. So I don't have that much contact with MUFON from that regard. However, from what I understand with the story, Ventry, as well as any of them, have a position of importance where they are representing the rest of us and the phenomenon itself. And when they do something incorrect, it reflects on everyone. There's a lot of tendency these days for people to appear racist or make remarks. But then the world has been polarized, as I see it, to where we are so sensitive that even the slightest breath of a remark, even in the slightest jest, can be taken as, oh my God, such a serious offense. So humanity has become extremely polarized and very uncertain of itself anymore. And those kind of things I find very disturbing, very difficult to deal with. So I would not say, I cannot call for his resignation, but he himself knows what the correct course of action is. And I hope that he's able to do that he should make that decision for himself. And if it was a serious mistake that he did in jest or without thoroughly thinking it through, then If he can make amends and offer the most serious of apology to everyone for that offense, then maybe he can be given a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance. But, again, he's in a position of responsibility. People are looking to him for answers. So it's a very tough spot to be in with responsibility.
Thank you so much for the candid answer on that, because that's one of the stories that we're going to be following here over the next few weeks. I think it's important. John has been on this show a couple of times, and I would say this: he's a very confident person, and,
yes,
and as he should. I mean, being as well respected as he is, but I think in this type of situation, considering the fact that afterwards he did make some comments about people leaving his Facebook over that, and he was fine with that, I think MUFON shouldn't have any other choice but to remove him, and if he wants to continue on in the field, he can do it as an individual, but I mean, you can't have that black eye straying over. But let's move on, as we only got about 4 minutes here with you, and I do want to get to this question. Yeah, this 3 hours has flown right by.
It's flown by for sure.
Well, I told you it would. I did forewarn you.
It absolutely has. It's been a blast.
The question I have comes from Trip here, and he is asking, we get a lot of questions about this. What do you think that Black Knight satellite is? Do you believe it's an actual alien satellite that is flying over our Earth? Or do you believe it's just a piece of space junk, or maybe a remnant comet or asteroid? What do you think it is?
I believe it is a piece of alien technology. Alien is such a harsh word. It is definitely a piece of ET technology. It is one of many, actually. I do not know what its purpose is, other than the fact that it is not mankind. It is self-protective, and it can move. It is a self-sufficient device. It is an artificial life form, an artificial entity. And it has been there a long, long time. It's kind of like, for those that have watched 2001, like the monolith. It is a benign sort of entity that watches and waits. And, but it is definitely connected to other sources. And, whether its purpose is entirely for observation or even to be a catalyst to cause certain events, I can only speculate.
I wonder about that. I'm just not sure about that one. There's so much
on
that.
I think humanity has had influences. There have been things that have gone on. But again, like I said, interfering with humanity's free will is a primary concern. Everybody says, oh, you're being Trekkie and you're talking like Star Trek and everything. Well, where do you think Star Trek got those ideas in the first place? All right, where do you think Star Wars came up with those ideas in the first place? Those things all came from the interactions and the realities of ETs and people like myself that are visiting and passing on information. The truth always prevails. It always is available. It is always there. That's, hence the X-Files. The truth is out there. It is. You just have to be willing to go out and look for it. So, I cannot say at this point, do I know who the race is that put it there? No. Do I know its entire purpose? No. But I do know that it is definitely extraterrestrial origin.
Do you think that there's a reason why we haven't tried to capture it, or maybe we have, but they have maybe taken care of whatever's trying to capture it?
Well, it's pretty much like, it's kind of like it's got its own self-protective systems in it. There ain't no way it's going to allow anything like that. And it's an advanced technology enough that it would be able to defend itself quite well. They know not to mess with it. It's kind of like another man's beautiful wife. Look but do not touch, or his fabulous car. Look but do not touch. And there is that respect. even amongst the space races, the super secret space programs and so forth, they all know, do not touch. And, if you live by those rules, you live for another day. If you don't, then there could be consequences.
Dale, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight, my friend. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much, too. It's been a ball, Dave. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Me too, my friend. I'm going to get you to hold on because I got to close this thing up here, if you don't mind.
Okay.
If you're listening in on the terrestrial radio side, WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Newton, Georgia, and the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL playing in the background. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Man, that's a good show to come back to. Tonight was a good show to come back after a 6-day break out of the Provincetown Paracon. Felt energized, and what a guest to do that. I love talking some aliens and UFOs. Always makes it exciting. Tomorrow night on the program, we're going to step back into the paranormal realm. It's that time of the month. Ghosts of the Great White North. I will be joined by Mike Morin from the Canadian Paranormal Investigations, and we will have a Canadian team on discussing the hauntings around Winnipeg, Manitoba, one of Canada's oldest settlements before they broke out west. Thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Absolute pleasure having all of you on. Remember, you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com, because that's where we got a lot of things going on. You can also check out The Encounter online. You can check out our new swag that's going to be up this week. We got t-shirts, we got stickers, we got posters. I'll even autograph it for you if you want it. Might devalue it, I don't know. But they're a sexy looking poster because we do own the night around here on Spaced Out Radio. I want to thank my team from The Encounter Online, Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham, our web developer Jolene, Catherine James on social media, our great intro and extra voice Bob Davis, our team manager for everything our business does, Kim Gandy, and our sales department, Thomas McGowan. Good to have you all with us tonight, because here at Spaced Out Radio, we own the night. Do us a favor, tell a friend, spread the word, just like you do. T-shirts will be on the website very soon, Craig, probably in the next day or two. Mr. Bumblefoot, how about taking us home? Good night.